Today I'm down in Southern California because Acura just pulled the covers off of the refreshed TLX. For this model year, they've really focused on customer feedback. And in the TLX Type S, it now includes gadgets and gizmos that customers had been asking for when the Type S first launched. For the 2-liter turbo model, there have been some decent changes, the most important of which is the deletion of the base model. So Acura has streamlined the ordering process, but it does mean that if you just want a TLX at the lowest price tag, it's actually going to be a little bit higher than 2023. But every model is going to get updated driver assistance technologies and much bigger screens on the inside. Let's take a look. Since I don't have a great deal of time with these two TLX models, let me just grab the camera and then you can come along with me as we take a look. Let's first look at the front end of this TLX A-Spec model. There are going to be only 3 different trims of the TLX for 2024, and this is going to be the mid-level trim. You can see that we get a different front grille than we had before. The bulk of the bumper remains the same, and I actually am surprised because it looks definitely different than the previous generation to me, thanks to this new grille up front and the grille topper, I guess you could say. This section of the bumper is new, and it no longer has a frame over that diamond pattern in the front end design. Let me know what you think of that look. I definitely like this grille design in the A-Spec. Moving over here to the TLX Type S, this is going to be obviously the range topping model. We find basically the same change here, where the upper section is different. The grille is now a glossy black rather than a matte black, and then we have those sort of diamond shapes there that are open to improve cooling for that 3-liter turbocharged engine. Now, moving around the vehicles, you'll notice that the rest of the TLX is basically the same as before. We have some updated wheel finishes, similar 5-spoke wheels on these two vehicles. The Type S has black wheels, whereas we find the gray ones over there in the A-Spec. This still has a very rear-wheel drive type of proportion, even though this is a transverse engine layout. That's really one of the things that gives the TLX its definite presence out on the road. Moving to the back, the TLX Type S doesn't really receive much of a change, and that's apparently because customers didn't really want much of a change in the back, they said. You can still get the carbon fiber spoiler on the top or carbon fiber splitter on the bottom if you want, but they're now going to be glossy carbon fiber instead of the matte carbon fiber. TLX Type S, of course, is still easily identifiable by those big quad exhaust tips over there. Now, moving over to the Type S, again, you'll notice we get the different finish on the wheels, the gray finish there, with the black caps on those bolts. That's a really elegant touch there. This one does receive a bit more of a change to the rear end design. You can see that the rear bumper has actually changed on the bottom there. We have the dual exhaust tips on this model. And if you get the new base TLX, then you still get the sort of rectangular exhausts. For 2024, the lineup is going to start in the technology package, then we're going to get A-Spec and then Type S. So there's no advanced trim. That's the big thing to know. So if you wanted that sort of middle bridge between this A-Spec and the TLX Type S, that's not happening for the 2024 model year. Under the hood of the A-Spec, we still find the same 2-liter turbo as before. It produces 272 horsepower, 280 pound-feet of torque, and it's mated to Acura's excellent in-house developed 10-speed automatic transmission. The other big change is that the A-Spec is going to come all-wheel drive only. Of course, Acura's super handling all-wheel drive, and the base version of the TLX, or I should say the new base model, is going to be front-wheel drive only. Of course, the TLX that about a quarter of shoppers want is this one over here. This is the TLX Type S, and this gets a 3-liter single-turbo 6-cylinder engine producing 355 horsepower, 354 pound-feet of torque, and it's mated to a sport-tuned version of that same 10-speed automatic transmission. Helping channel that power to the ground are Pirelli all-season tires. You can get available Pirelli summer tires as well, but those are going to be now an aftermarket accessory from your Acura dealer. You can also get the lightweight wheels that we found before, but those are also going to be basically an accessory purchase from the dealer. So they've really streamlined the ordering process, but they've kept the most important part of the Type S intact, which really is its drivetrain. Moving inside, let's take a look at the TLX Type S because this interior is red, so it's going to be a little bit easier to film, of course. You'll notice that we still have the same proportions that we had before. We still have the pretty standard sized moonroof just over the driver and front passengers' heads. Same general seat design that we had before, which is a combination of leather and this imitation suede upholstery section right there in the middle. The most important thing to remember about the TLX continues to be that on the outside, it's a bit more similar to the BMW 5 Series in terms of dimensions, but as far as the interior dimensions go, it's actually a little bit closer to the BMW 3 Series. This driver's seat is all the way back in its tracks, so definitely suitable for a taller driver, but you notice that it does get awfully close to that rear bench seat. With the front seat comfortably adjusted for me at 6 feet tall, I have about 3 inches of legroom left. Now, logically, that front seat could move a little bit further forward to give me a little bit more legroom, but that gives you a general idea of what's going on in here. Rear seat headroom has always been a bit of a challenge for this generation TLX because there are no body changes. That has not changed. If I try and put my head back there to the headrest, it's still definitely touching the ceiling. Logically, since this is a refresh, not a redesign, most of the interior is the same as last year, but we do get some improved stitching on the dashboard and on the doors. You'll really notice it over here on the dashboard where we have this new stitch line here in the Type S. Again, keep in mind I am in the Type S at the moment. But more people are probably going to notice the bigger LCDs in the dashboard. This now has a just over 12-inch LCD in the center of everything. This is basically the same software and hardware borrowed out of the MDX. That gives this faster responses. It also gives it wireless Android Auto and wireless CarPlay. We have the same controller down here that I'm not the biggest fan of, but you'll certainly notice that the system is definitely snappier than before. The bulk of the interior remains the same, so all these controls are basically the same as the 2023 TLX. But I definitely noticed and definitely like that bigger screen in the dash. You're also really going to notice the LCD instrument cluster here because this has again basically been borrowed out of the MDX. It's now a full color big LCD, and on top of it, new for the Type S, is the heads-up display. This is now the absolute top end of the TLX lineup, whereas before the 2-liter turbo and the Type S, they kind of shared that crown with different features available in each model. One of those features that was not available in Type S is this 360-degree camera. You can activate it with the button on the turn signal stalk, and then you can rotate through the various views there. Obviously, there's also going to be a backup camera view. Acura says that not only have they added this feature to the Type S, but they've also improved the 360-degree camera functionality, and they've given it a better field of view, and they've also improved the clarity of the image. The steering wheel, that's basically the same as before, so we get the flat bottom there in the Type S, paddle shifters on the back, and all those controls right there on the front. Be sure and sound off in the comment section below. Let me know what you think of the interior in the TLX, especially in this Type S model. I think Acura has done exactly what they needed to do here. Give it some bigger screens to make it feel a little bit more modern, especially that big LCD instrument cluster. That's a really welcome change. Really, the only thing that I think I would tweak in this interior would be to give it a touchscreen and remove that little touch controller there in the center console. Moving over to the A-Spec trim, you'll notice we have the same sort of stitching there on the dashboard and the exact same LCDs, because these LCDs are actually standard in the TLX. Even if you get the base model, you're going to get the big LCD instrument cluster. Now, one thing you won't get, however, with the 2-liter turbo is the heads-up display. The heads-up display and the 360-degree camera, those are exclusive to the Type S model only. Very similar center console arrangement here to the Type S, basically the same sort of buttons, etc., but the trim changes a little bit on each side. There is a little bit too much gloss black plastic for me in the middle of everything. That is probably going to scratch up a little bit more easily than I would like, but the bulk of this, where you're going to really be dragging things across, is more of a matte finish, so I think that's going to hold up a little bit better. I mentioned earlier that Acura has improved the driver assistance systems on the TLX. That's courtesy to some new radar modules. We get a new radar right here behind the Acura logo. It's smaller than before physically, so it's helped clean up the front end design of the TLX, but it's also helped expand the autonomous braking systems of the vehicle, from pedestrian detection to vehicle detection as well. Then there's some new radar modules in the back of the vehicle for the blind spot monitoring system that can better detect approaching vehicles and expand the field of view for that blind spot monitoring system. The rest of the Acura watch technologies, obviously they're still on board and they're still standard in the TLX. So adaptive cruise control, the aggressive lane centering program, all that stuff is standard on every trim. Now, when I say base model, I don't mean the same base model that we found in 2023, because for 2024, although we don't know pricing just yet, we know that Acura has narrowed the lineup, and logically things are going to get a little bit more expensive, as we typically see as model years increment. So the base version is now going to be the technology package model. I wasn't able to see that one today. That's 2-liter turbo, front-wheel drive only, but it does have the big LCDs and the expanded autonomous safety systems. If you want all-wheel drive, you want the A-Spec trim, 2-liter turbo, all the standard equipment you saw in this video. If you want all-wheel drive and you want a bigger, more powerful engine, you want the TLX Type S. This is logically going to be more expensive than last year's TLX Type S, not just because of the typical increase for a model year, but also because we get more feature content on the Type S than we had before. Some folks are going to be a little bit disheartened by the lack of the summer tire and lighter weight wheel package, but you can get those from the dealer as an accessory, and then they'll just bolt right onto your car. I don't think the loss of that option is a big deal. I'm happy that the TLX Type S, A, is sticking around, and B, has the features that we found in the advanced model before that it was lacking. And I'm not alone, because apparently a full fourth to third of TLX sales are the Type S model, and for me that makes a lot of sense because I think it is the truest expression of the TLX. The TLX has always been fun to drive in this generation, thanks to the super handling all-wheel drive system we find on this A-Spec model, but it's even better when you add 355 horsepower to it, like we find over there in that TLX. If you're shopping for a Lexus ES or a Lexus IS, you should definitely take a look at the TLX. It's an awful lot of fun. I love the 10-speed automatic transmission. It's quite simply more fun than the Lexus ES. Unfortunately, at this point in time, I can't really talk about value because we don't know how much either of these cost exactly, but you can probably guesstimate it by taking a look at the 2023 model year numbers and adding about $1,000 for this TLX A-Spec and maybe $1,500, $2,000 for this Type S over here. That's probably the neighborhood that we'll be working in. Be sure and let me know what you think about that down there in the comment section below. And do you like the changes that Acura made to the TLX? Do you think they were enough? Do you think they weren't enough to keep this fresh and competitive in the luxury sedan segment? Remember that luxury sedan sales aren't exactly exploding right now in the United States, so I'm just glad that Acura didn't kill off the TLX in favor of some other crossover. I'm glad that they remain dedicated to giving us a sedan in this category. Let me know down there. Find us at Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all those other social places. I'll see all of you next week.